Hey, this is AV Unit 4A for CollectionDX.com. This is the conclusion of the video review for the Leader-class Autobot Jetfire set from the 2009 feature film Transformers: Revenge of the Fallen. You've already heard my opinions regarding vehicle mode and robot mode, and especially my opinion on how you transform him. Now I'm going to put him together with Leader-class Autobot Optimus Prime. Yo, OP! Okay, here we go. Let's get this over with as quickly as I can. I'm just going to change Optimus here real quick. For the upper section here, they don't really tell you to do this, but kind of for my own sanity, these are the changes that I make. You'll learn, and I'll point this out later on, that some of the changes with Power Up Optimus Prime, which is how I'm going to refer to him, that's how Hasbro refers to him, by the way. With Power Up Optimus Prime is a little bit of is personal choice, how you want the final product to look. Yeah, you can follow the instructions, but in particular when it comes to the shoulder armor, like I said, I'll get to that when I get to that. There is a little bit of give and take in there, which you need to allow for. So you're just gonna separate these and just leave that free floating. Come on, OP. There we go. And really, the only changes they tell you to make are to open up the feet, pull these down, open these up. But me, I put the smokestacks back. Ooh, smokestack. Good thing it's made of rubber. I put the smokestacks back, and I put these shoulder pieces here. So that's all the changes you need to make to Optimus. Okay, here we go. Move the blaster. Carefully, because it can break. Mine didn't, but it can. Move the staff. You can leave it like that. Close up the hands. Here we go. Let's see, where do I start? I'll start with the feet. Just start at the beginning. Fair warning, I've only done this already. Oh, I don't believe this. Okay, as I was saying, fair warning. Wow, the tightness in this joint is ridiculous, even for Jetfire. I've only done this 3 times now since I got him, so yeah. Open this up, and you're going to keep the feet, keep these folded up, and then, oh, yeah, okay. Now these are just to open things up is what I'm doing right now. They're not in their final positions, so there'll be more tweaking later on with his feet. Oh, no you don't. Don't you dare. Okay, so this is how his feet are going to look when you're done with him. Just like that. For now, I'm just going to loosen up the nose. Yeah, by the way, look how much trouble it took me to I just tilted the nose, done. Try to put it back in, and it takes me 2 hours. Yeah. Just fold these forward for now. Separate the nose carefully. kind of need both hands in order to do that. Now, the instructions tell you to just turn these down. My preference is to turn it at the actual, those ratcheting joints there. Turn those to the side like that, okay? Now, his face is going to be visible the whole time, so, yeah, okay. And I get to pull this whole damn thing apart. Oh, yeah. Turn the... Yeah, that's right. You're going to want to turn the nose around 180 degrees. That way you'll be able to make room for the engines. Just going to fold the wings up so I don't have to mess with them. Now we can take this part off. This thing that I struggled with greatly during the transformation. And I'll set this to the side for now. Let's see. Where do I... Oh, alright. Yeah. Now, in preparation for... This is about as... Oh, wait. There's one thing. Getting a little ahead of myself. This is about as far as you can get with Jetfire without combining him with Optimus. And like I said, you can do tweaking with it after things start coming together. Here's where things start getting difficult. I checked. I double-checked. I triple-checked. The instructions say you're just supposed to smack them together and that's it. That's not the case at all. That's not the case at all. I checked online, I looked to see how others did it, I made certain that I was doing it correctly in the instructions. This is the best option that I have come up with. Here's your objectives. There are 3 connection points. There's up here, there's this thing here, and then there's these down here. Okay? We're going to be starting up here. What you need to do is you need to get these over, not these back joints, but the front joints. It needs to cover over those. Okay? Now you'll notice there's this light gray thing here. The light gray thing there needs to go over this, so it's going to kind of wedge itself in there. And here's the tricky part. That's kind of tricky in and of itself. It's okay. Here's the difficult part. You see these 2 holes here? These holes need to go over these pegs. That's the tricky part. First time I did this took about 15 minutes just for this first step. Okay, I've already latched the gold part in. I know you guys can't see it. Uh-oh. I can deal with that later. You see, the problem is you can't grab here in order to pull down. That's the tricky part. And you can't push on this because you're going to cut yourself. Good, they're in the holes. Whew. That was a little less difficult than I was expecting. Okay, good. So that's the first part. Now, we're going to deal with this thing. This is not for anything anatomical, but I always wondered what that hole was for because it never got used. Well, here's this peg right here. Fits in there. I actually don't like having this little thing sticking, this little whatchamacallit sticking under here because it just makes things really tight. Ooh, garlic. And his legs, at this point,
you realize his legs are not going anywhere, so you're gonna, oops. I really don't like that little peg thing in there. It and me do not get along. I guess it's not giving me a choice. Okay, alright. Well, that works. Now here comes the kind of mind-boggling part. You have to, the same joints that were used to, there's the hole here and the tab here, well, these same things, you could actually point Optimus' foot down, and because of the kind of weird flexibility in Jetfire's legs, let's see, am I even, nope, let's see. Okay, there we go. And believe it or not, it actually is a very solid connection. And then this isn't much of a hassle. Just slip this around, and there we go. Okay. I know the other foot is in the way, but this is what it's going to look like when it's done. Okay. And the same feature for the, what's going on here? The left leg. This one's a little easier. Boom, done. Let's see. Oh. Just making sure everything's tight here. Okay, good. That's how the feet work out. Okay, and last, I suppose least, I'm going to bring these two, if you're wondering what these rubber thingies are, they're actually a belt that go across his waist. What's going to happen is, this kind of dome-shaped structure is going to fit into, I don't remember if this is a light, I guess it's not. And you're just going to wedge it in there. It doesn't, nothing snaps into place. It's just going to wedge in there. And then, oh, I'm not going to be able to do it. Got to use both hands. It'd help if I actually point the camera and show you guys what I'm doing here. There. That's it. Now for the last part, shoulders. The instructions say, fold it over, blah, 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 blah. What you're going to do is this. Let's see. Pull these forward at the shoulder, and then we're going to be working with the elbows, and only the elbows, for this next process. Tilt them down, and you'll figure out your own procedure for how to accomplish this. But what I do, eventually, and let's see. Okay. And like I said, this right here is the part I mentioned earlier. You have to kind of fiddle around with it. This is the part right here where you get thrown up to personal interpretation as to how you want the final transformation to work, and it's right here. The rest of it, you're required to have it in a certain position. Me, at this point, you can kind of mess around. So, want it closer to his head, because, in actuality, they actually tilt down, and really, it's just the nose that sits up here, but because Hasbro and Takara Tomy decided to do it this way, I'm going to go a little more kind of Brave Saga, giant shoulders. I know mentioning Brave Saga and Transformers in the same breath is a bit of heresy, but then we're going to finish this off. These also are optional. The way I do it is, you see it's kind of an L-shaped here. What I like to do, go ahead and open these fins back up again. What I like to do is tilt it upward a little. Or wait, is that right? Yeah. I tilt it upward. Let's see, how did I do that? I don't remember. Oh, that's right, yeah. So that this, it's perpendicular to each other, this bar and then the engine nacelle. They're tilted outward and then go like that. And then you get, wait, there's one more thing I forgot to do. I forgot all about his weapons. Remember this thing? Yeah, this thing. Fold the handle out. Fold the barrel of the gun out. Doesn't look like much of a barrel to me. Here's what you're going to do. Take the cane and stick it so that the wheel points inwards. Easiest way to remember it. You're going to turn this 90, and then you're going to sandwich it on the other side. This becomes his gun. Very hollow gun. Just stick it. Oh, that's right. Yeah. Okay, there's one modification you need to do. In the review for Optimus Prime, I said there was one step that I intentionally did not follow, and that was the panels on the right side of the arm, or on the outside of the arm, I should say. I always kept them down just so that, you know, things would be able to move around better, and you can watch the review to see what I mean. In this case, you do want to move them upwards. Both of them, by the way. You want to move both panels upwards. And that will make room for the various parts. Stick that in all the way, fits just fine. And then, on the other side, take this little thing, and you, to the last I will grapple with thee. Right. Who the hell designed this thing? Jesus H. Oh, wasn't this difficult in rehearsal? Oh, that's right. I don't rehearse these. There we go. Oh, finally. And then this goes back in here. And at last we get Power Up Optimus Prime. Posability is as follows. Because the panels were lifted upwards, it's, and you know, the spiel about not being able to pose the shoulders with the swords, bending it outwards was never really an option, or bending it inwards was never an option because the sword gets bent. So now you can still, you know, bend the shoulder, or I'm sorry, bend the elbow, and that'll twist just fine. That's not a problem. Yep, the swords. And the other thing you have to watch out for is that the sword tips actually bump into these things here. So if you want to tilt the blue panel back, it won't lock in place. Officially, it's supposed to be like that. You can tilt it back a little if you want to. I've heard some people actually reposition it in a different way, but I just keep it that way. I mean, through all the hassle of trying to get this thing transformed correctly, I don't even bother. It does help though to have these panels outwards a little bit, mostly because, you know, the panels have been raised up. So otherwise, the shoulders still have, you know, the full articulation. Now, the legs are incapacitated. One from the, I don't know, it's crotch plate thing down here. It actually it wedges itself between the thighs, but it doesn't it doesn't allow them to spread apart very easily. The knees are here, but the next available joint on Jetfire is down here. You can kind of sort of tilt the ball and socket joint here and the knee. They actually do kind of sort of work in concert, but really you can't do anything. So the legs are not going to spread apart. They're not going to lean forward and backwards. And part of that issue is, he actually does lean forward slightly. And that's because the feet actually angle forward a little bit. I don't know why, but they do. And the head can still turn. And like I said, you can tweak with the shoulder armor. You can tweak with the engines in back. The cannon here isn't really going to do much of anything. You can't really turn the wrist, so it's pretty much stuck in that one position. Little minigun on the wrong arm, by the way. You can tilt it or twist it in and out. You want to twist it in like that, fine, whatever. Interesting thing to note is that Optimus actually drops this sometime after he and the Fallen, fall off the pyramid, no pun intended, and then it just kind of disappears. But then, later on in the slow motion action, which by the way I did appreciate, thank you very much Michael Bay, the minigun is actually a pair of single barrel guns sitting on the side of his arm. So you would take this off and lo and behold there'd be cannons right there. Well, they decided to just give us a little minigun sitting on the side here, and yeah, okay. As you've kind of sort of seen already, the swords are still deployable on both sides. So all you got to do is take the gun off, and you can use the swords. So that option is still there. But otherwise, he's pretty much restricted to top-only movement, which... So yeah, that's the Leader-class version of Power Up Optimus Prime. There is one other thing. The Mech-Alive gimmick in Optimus's chest you can't get to, and Jetfire's Mech-Alive gimmick, you can't activate it unless he's in robot mode. Let's see, where is it? Down here is... This is the sound box right here. Here's the battery compartment right here, by the way. Take the screw off, blah, 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 blah. Here is the sound for jet mode. But it's recessed. It's inward, so you're not really meant to push it. However, there's another little button sitting here that has been revealed by taking the one panel off. Does this. Now, because my fingers were covering up the sound box and back, you get... which admittedly is not too bad. That's not a bad sound. Oh yeah, by the way. Yeah, that thing is still going off. Why, I don't know, but it is. Admittedly, that sound is actually a good sound. That's not a bad sound. I like that sound. And that is the Leader-class version of Power Up Optimus Prime. From about 1986 until about 2006, any Transformers combiner, toy, and even on screen had to come apart, and you'd have to rearrange stuff, weapons, and you'd have to get some mystical, fantastic connection joints to go between the knee, for like the upper legs, the lower arms, the fists, and even the head. These were all things that would just kind of randomly pop out of nowhere. A bunch of little robot stuff that would just sit off to the side. You transform a character between vehicle mode and robot mode and whatever, maybe even a triple change or whatever, but there'd always be this little pile of stuff that would sit over here that could only be used with the combiner. And like I said, this has been the trend for about 20 years. It's not really until Transformers Cybertron, aka Transformers Galaxy Force in 2006, where combiners, it got to the point where really only weapons
and, you know, some kind of Energon special effects or whatever, where that was really the only stuff that you had to swap. Otherwise, they were completely self-contained characters. You had no parts that came off during any of the transformation process, regardless of whether they were, you know, two limbs were repaints or not. And nowhere is this more true than in Transformers Revenge of the Fallen. Jetfire and Optimus had never even met until that one moment in Egypt. Optimus is alive for about 10 seconds. And Jetfire's like, there's no way Optimus can beat the Fallen in his current condition. I'm a wreck, and he's the only one who can defeat the Fallen. What am I going to do? Well, he sacrifices himself. He rips out his own spark chamber. Well, wait a minute. If he's combining with Optimus, why would he kill himself? Because Jetfire and Optimus were never meant to combine with each other in the Bayformers universe. In fact, it took another little bit of cinematic magic in order for these two to get this combination. By the way, Jolt is an awesome character. I love this thing. I don't know why does Transfans shoot this guy down, but I've already done the review for this guy for CollectionDX. This thing is awesome. I don't know why does people don't get this. Like, the only thing that's bad about it is the head can't turn, and the whips are a little short, but I was like, I know I'm promoting another product at this time, but this thing is awesome. And so Jolt over there cannibalizes Jetfire's parts and randomly just onto Optimus to give him a nice big upgrade. So now all of a sudden Optimus Prime becomes the first flying Autobot ever in Bayformers, at least until Bayformers 3 comes out, and I don't know, we might get Cyberjets or something like that. How ironic is it that a character actually gets shredded to pieces and randomly recombined onto another character with hundreds, possibly thousands of parts, just kind of in the movie, but then the toy stays in a single piece, with the exception of the weapons. Every single piece on here, it's all solidly locked. I mean, there was Jetfire, there was Optimus, and I just went, and we got that. How ironic is that? I don't regularly read any TransFan forums, so this is an idea I've just come up with on my own. If I'm mirroring somebody else, hey, great minds think alike, you know? I think what Takara Tomy and Hasbro should have done, or could have done, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt, could have, was create a thin skeleton of plastic, real thin, that had additional joints or whatever, and then over this skeletal structure would be a dozen or so smaller armor components. When this skeleton had all these components on it, you would have Jetfire in robot mode, and then you could, you know, transform in between robot mode and vehicle mode. But then, when you wanted to make power-up Optimus Prime here, you would remove all the components from that skeletal structure, however the structure is designed. Like, it would have extra joints that flip in weird directions or whatever. And then you'd be able to take these individual pieces, and then just like in the movie, you would just attach them to the different areas on Optimus Prime's body. That way, you would be able to get armored sections to attach to the legs, to the torso, to the shoulders, and even a little bit to the arms. And then you'd still have a little left over to imply that, you know, a little bit of Jetfire is still around. This skeletal structure would also have the light and sound gimmick in it. Now, granted, it wouldn't be very powerful. You might be able to get 2, maybe 3 sound effects out of it, and that would be it. But the LED, you'd probably have to limit it to 1 LED, heaven forbid. But then you would have the pleasant effect of having a Power-Up Optimus Prime that has... like, Power-Up Optimus Prime in Revenge of the Fallen has exoskeletal armor system. All the stuff is added to the outside. There's nothing really that was added to the inside of him. Like, he didn't have to wrap around anything. Everything wrapped around him instead. And with this type of system, you would be able to have the dozen-plus parts. It wouldn't be hundreds or thousands of parts. It'd be, 12 to 15 different parts. And you know, they'd be symmetrically designed, and they'd fit here, and they'd fit here, and some would go on the chest, and blah, 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 things like that. Now, granted, I can't imagine what this would look like, but I can imagine that, yeah, it would probably be more expensive than your standard Leader-class figure, which is in the $45 to $50 range. With a skeletal system, it'd probably punch it up to 60, maybe even 70. You know, this would not be a cheap thing. But the advantages to this would be, one, you'd have a more satisfying combination into power-up Optimus Prime. Two, you wouldn't have to worry about nearly as much robot kibble hanging off the bottom of Jetfire's vehicle mode. And three, many of the parts that you saw on Jetfire's robot mode would also look like it belonged in the movie. One of my complaints about Jetfire is that, you know, 95% of the toy is not screen accurate. Well, if you did it this way, you could detail each part a lot more so than you could if the entire toy was a single piece like it is here. Now, like I said, the only downside to this would be the skeletal structure would probably be would have to be very, very rigid. It'd have to be strong. I mean, they might even make it out of what's that plastic called? Palm or something like that. You know, that stuff they put in Choco Keen sets. You know, that might have something like that. I doubt they'd use die-cast metal because that'd pump it up into $100 or something like that, and that would be unreasonable even for me. But I think the skeletal structure would have been much more satisfying. In the 5 years I've been volunteering my time writing for CollectionDX.com, I don't think I've ever come across a toy that's quite as twisted and distorted as Leader-class Autobot Jetfire. It's got sharp edges, so you can't grab it this way. It's got parts that pop off, so you can't grab it over here, which makes it virtually untouchable in vehicle mode, or in robot mode, or when it's transforming. You know, I'm actually having difficulty describing the experience of playing around with this toy. I even had difficulty with it when I was writing the text review. I always write the text reviews first, smaller as those are getting nowadays. This toy just strikes me as so like the personality of the character it's based on that it's creepy. It's got a lot of sharp edges to it and points. It's got parts that fall off real easily. It's very stubborn. It doesn't work well with others. It's kind of off in a world of its own. There's this, it's so surreal. It's such a difficult feeling to explain. I can't verbalize it, but this toy in so many ways emulates the personality of Jetfire that it's downright creepy. And I wonder how much of that is intentional design and how much of that is just the way it turned out. You know, the way the toy turned out, and it was just kind of crap. I committed myself to reviewing Jetfire before it actually came out. We didn't know what it was going to look like. We didn't know how it was going to act. And as time went by and I saw the reviews of others, I was like, oh God, what am I getting myself into here? But I continued on, and I told Josh, you know, I'm going to cover this. I'm going to find a bright spot with this toy. Well, I tried my hardest, ladies and gentlemen, and really, I cannot find a bright spot anywhere on this toy. There is no nostalgia. There is no, oh yeah, that's just like the time he. There's just, it's such an empty feeling. It's creepy, and yet the mechanisms of the toy, the sound doesn't come out. You know, it doesn't even sound like Jetfire. You know, it's some random guy at Hasbro. Jetfire's my name. He's not even British, for crying out loud. There's so much that's wrong with this toy. It is so difficult to find anything that is right with it, that is good with it. You saw me struggling to transform it, both in this video and when I was reviewing Jetfire alone. It's not an easy toy to work with. It's really not. I look at the various Transformer wikis that are out there, and they're all poking fun at it too. In fact, perhaps the only thing that I liked about it was there's a little warning there. Was it Lieutenant Colonel Brawley, whoever that is? I don't think that's a real person, but anyways. And then there's a little labeling on there, and then on the back you have the actual numbering of the plane, like the plane that was in the National Air and Space Museum, and then you have the Skunk Works logo. And those are decorations. Physically, this toy doesn't do anything for me. And I bought it knowing full well I wasn't going to like what came out of this. But since I seem to be covering most of the toys by choice for Transformers, I was somewhat obligated to cover it. And I'd committed myself to it months earlier, so in conclusion, Leader-class Jetfire, not worth it. Really, really not worth it. I mean, you try to look for the bright spots, there aren't any. He's got robot kibble at the yin-yang in vehicle mode. Robot mode is hard to pose. He's difficult to transform. Power-up Optimus Prime doesn't look anything like he does in the movie. Optimus Prime was cool. This version of Optimus Prime was cool because it was complex and yet everything went where it was supposed to, and it was screen accurate as far as the details in robot mode. There wasn't really anything bad about it. Yeah, it's kind of more for the older collector, but hey, that's all the more fun as far as I'm concerned. It wasn't really for kids. I don't care. The Leader-class Jetfire it's a pain in the ass to work with. So, moral of the story, I don't like Leader-class Jetfire. It is not worth the $45, $50. And I don't think kids are going to get much of a kick out of it anyways. Like, they might get a kick out of Optimus Prime because he looks better in robot mode and in vehicle mode than the 2007 version did, but Jetfire is just a pile. I'm sorry. It's just a pile. I'm not impressed with it. And so, this is AV Unit 4A for CollectionDX.com, signing off.